Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is episode 16 of High Street Sports. Ohio State, a 37-17 winner yesterday in the Horseshoe against a very, very game Maryland Terrapins team. Ohio State got punched in the mouth a little bit early with an untimely turnover that led to a short Maryland drive that turned into the first score of the game. Ohio State's offense was stuck in neutral for the better part of the first half of that football game yesterday. We'll get to all that stuff in just a second. Vince, what's going on, man? Initial thoughts of yesterday and where Ohio State goes from here.
Not a whole lot. I thought it was an interesting game. A lot of adversity there. Very slow start. Almost looked like the team was still reminiscing in the Notre Dame victory, but overall it was a good day to be a Buckeye and come home with a big win, 20-point win over Maryland. And there's a couple of things that I noticed that were kind of not related to the play. One of them being, can we talk about these mouth guards here?
Yeah.
First, it was the green one. Now it is a purple one, a pink one. There's a gray one, and I can't remember the player, but somebody was wearing two, one in his mouth and one hanging down from his helmet. What's going on with this?
I did notice that, and we talked about that yesterday during the game. And yeah, that was a new one that I've never seen before. Marv is synonymous with that green mouthpiece that just kind of hangs off of his face mask, and several other players have that mouth guard that just hangs off the face mask. But never have I seen two of them on one helmet at one time, one in the mouth, one hanging off. So I don't know if it's swag, as the kids say these days, or what, but yeah, that was different.
That it was Carnell Tate. While you were talking there, I went back and looked at our messages. It was definitely Carnell Tate wearing both of them. He had the gray one in his mouth, and then I think it was a pink or a purple one hanging.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't get what the kids are doing with these mouthpieces today. And why even put it on your helmet if you're not going to wear it? Like,
I don't
wouldn't that
know.
slow you down?
Yeah, well, one would think. I wouldn't like it hanging and dangling there while I'm running routes, but
Smacking you in the neck.
Yeah, right. You get hit in the Adam's apple. But yeah, that'd be a tough stoppage of play. And we had another odd thing happen yesterday with that drone stoppage for about, I don't know, 45 seconds to a minute.
Yeah.
That really pissed off Ryan Day when they had to get everybody off the field and off the ball for the second. I think that was a third down play for Ohio State, maybe, but a lot of odd things.
Ohio State was on offense.
Yeah.
I mean, it surely didn't help Ohio State's third down. 3 for 12 on the day, 25%.
Yeah.
But I think we should probably kick it off here with special teams. The only portion of special teams that I saw that was at the very least competent was the field goal kicking. That was it. I believe that fielding was 3 for 3. And everything else looked like it was a bunch of 3-year-olds trying to cover, especially on punt block or on on punt. It was
coverage.
Bad. Yeah, coverage. That's there's the word. And then even punt return was bad. Emeka got smacked a couple of times. It was probably good that Jaden Ballard finished it off back there anyway. And then the botched snap on the punt. Ryan Day says that was not a fake, but I don't know how you spray the ball that far left if it's not a fake.
Yeah, I'd shout out to Spectrum for a random coverage outage yesterday that happened from about 7:30 in the morning to, I don't know, probably halftime in my neck of the woods down here in North Carolina. So I was not able to see that opening play. I still have not yet, but yeah, it was unfortunate that when I was able to pull the stream up, that Maryland was already catching a touchdown pass. So yeah, you can't have that. Can't have miscues like that, especially on your side of the field. And it's that's frustrating, and it leads to the discussion of what the hell is going on with Ohio State's offensive line. To have an opening drive go out like that, and then to even be in the position where you don't even cross midfield on your first drive of the game, is really tough to start the game. And you heard the comments from Ryan Day leading into this one, and Emeka's comments that all the talk on social media all week, and about how everybody thinks that they can just out physical Ohio State, and that I think Emeka said that Maryland was too confident and thought that they could come into Ohio State and play with them, and they were offended by that, and they wanted to start strong. That was the opposite of starting strong, and in about the biggest way possible. So that was concerning to see at the very least.
Yeah, I think the offensive line struggles is something that we've seen this whole year. We thought maybe they would get it together. Right now, it doesn't look like they're going to figure it out. I don't know if it is part of the change in philosophy, going away from zone runs for the majority of your runs, right? Kevin Wilson last year was really reliant on those zone runs instead of gap schemes. And you're seeing about a 50-50% or 50-50 split between gap and zone. So I'm not sure if it's that in the run game, or if we just have athletes that aren't up to the task to being offensive linemen at Ohio State right now. I don't think that they would be in the program if they were not up to the task to be Ohio State starters. That's why I caveat that with right now, but they need to improve a ton more. Carson Hinsman, probably one of the worst offensive linemen in pass protection that I've ever seen. He constantly will get blown off the ball right down the middle. Nose tackles are abusing him this season. And I know you have some thoughts about some other offensive linemen, most notably the tackles, which they haven't played very well. Neither has the interior linemen of Matthew Jones and Donnie Jackson. Those guys should be your two best linemen. They're the only guys that came back. And what do you make of that?
I don't know what to make of it, because you look across college football and you see the results from yesterday, and Notre Dame obviously went into Louisville and got beat. And that's 2 weeks in a row that Notre Dame probably deserved to lose. I don't know if they deserved to win at Duke, but they ended up pulling that one out. But the bottom line is, you faced a hands down better offensive or defensive line 2 weeks ago at Notre Dame, and seemed to play very very well for the most part in that game. And then you have an off week, and then you come out on the other side of the off week, and then you look like you don't know how to football. I mean, that just putting it very clear. They looked like they forgot how to football in the first half, and it just you've got a good one coming up in 2 weeks, and you've got one that you can't look past coming up this week. And I can't help but think that there's got to be some underlying issues there that we just don't know about. Because as you mentioned, Josh Simmons was the second highest graded pass blocker on the team yesterday. But just looking at the film blindly, there's no way in my mind that number can be correct. And then, he was a 69.9. So basically an even 70 in both pass blocking and run blocking, according to PFF. And it just, penalties, Carson Hinsman looked lost. Josh Fryer, there were plays where he was getting blown off the ball to the point where the end was already by him by the time he even picked his head up, or even, went to make a pass block move. So there was just not a lot good to say about the offensive line at all yesterday. And my dad actually texted me at the end of the first half, when Marv was found twice, and said, well, damn, it's funny what happens when Kyle McCord has some time back there. And I said, yeah, it's Jekyll and Hyde for that offensive line right now, and they need to find some consistency and in a hurry.
Yeah, and I think that how much do you make of it that Matthew Jones and Donovan Jackson are trying to make up for the mistakes of the three inexperienced guys next to them? Do you think that that is a possibility? I mean, Matthew Jones was 85% run block grade and was 49.1, but when you look at Carson Hinsman's numbers, he was 67.8 on pass block. I just don't understand how you get blown off the ball like Carson Hinsman does on pass in pass block situations and grade that high. And Matthew Jones is, I mean, he's a solid offensive lineman and did very well last year. So it makes me wonder if Donovan Jackson and Matthew Jones are getting the short end of the stick when it comes to offensive line play because they are the more experienced guys and they have to go try to correct some of those errors and make up for some of those errors that the other three guys around them are making.
Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility for sure. But the bottom line is that one of them has to step up and be a vocal leader. And when you've got returners like, they are, and especially out of Matthew Jones, I, I'm almost, to the point where I'm disappointed that it doesn't seem like there's a vocal leader on that offensive line. But at some point, somebody's going to have to step up and take those reins. And, this is the time in which they need to do it the most, because everything in front of you is everything that you've been talking about all season and all off season. And that's, getting ready to go in and beat a good Penn State team in 2 weeks. And that's not looking past Purdue, but that just is what it is. And if you don't take each week seriously and each rep in practice seriously, then this team is not going to get to its goals. And that just is what it is. And we talked before we got on the show about what we thought of the run game as a whole, and Joel Klatt really hammered that yesterday in the broadcast. And that was, there are no excuses for the way that the offensive line isn't getting to the second level and blocking linebackers. Yesterday, Maryland's success against the run was, because exactly that. You had free running linebackers going sideline to sideline, and they were able to make plays because nobody was getting a hand on them. And then there was a Josh Fryer pull block that he took the wrong guy, which led Chip Trainum to basically, miss the block, which led to a big Kyle McCord sack. And it's just those things cannot happen. And it's week 6, and that stuff should be behind the Buckeyes in that respect. But it looks like an uphill battle for Ryan Day and the rest of that offensive staff to get that offensive line where it needs to be for the rest of the season.
Yeah, 3 rushes on 64 yards at 2 yards a carry is just not good enough. You need to be at least 3.5 to really win in big games. And with the 3 for 12 on third down, that's not going to cut it against a Michigan. That's not going to cut it against Penn State. Against Purdue next week, maybe, but do we want to try that out? I mean, ask that what was it, 2017 team
17
or 2018?
Yeah.
With Dwayne Haskins, ask them about that. If you overlook them and don't get first downs, you're not going to win. And Ohio State got real lucky yesterday, coming out on the other side of that short yardage has to get better. I don't know if it's just the mentality that this offensive line is a pass blocking line, and so they're letting everything come to them. But we need some guys that just want to go out there and knock dudes over. Just go play hard. And not to say that I think their effort's lacking. I don't think it's the effort. I think there is either something going on skill wise or schematically. And we'll see once it starts to get tough, whether they can, right the ship or not. But along with that, Kyle McCord in the first half looked like he was lost at times because he's got guys coming at him so fast that he couldn't make plays and was jumping off reads too early. Do you make the first half was an offensive line struggle and that's why Kyle looked so off, or do you think that the bye week had some play in that as well?
I don't like the way, let's just be abundantly clear here. I don't like the way that either side of the ball came out of the gates, looking like yesterday. So this isn't limited to just an offensive discussion. I mean, it is right now because we're talking about the offense, but as a whole, that's not limited to an offensive issue. So I have noticed a trend over, last year, obviously, a lot of people have pointed it out how Ohio State looked pre-off week and post-off week. And you can go back and look at the film and you can see that for yourself. But it is becoming an issue with Ohio State coming off of a bye week. And that is inexcusable, and also something that needs to be corrected as soon as possible, because you cannot have, and I understand, like Ryan Day talked about it after the Notre Dame game, that they're going to enjoy it. They're going to heal, get their bodies right and get people healthy and treatment and whatnot. But there is no excuse to come out of a bye week flat. And so for them to look the way that they did yesterday, and I know I talked about it, on the previous two iterations of the pod, with, Ohio State's had trouble with Maryland over the last 3 or 4 years. And I'll give credit where credit's due. Loxley managed a hell of a game yesterday. And that's not to be overshadowed. But you're Ohio State and you have to come out and physically impose your will, because, and again, no disrespect, but if you look at Maryland top to bottom and you look at Ohio State top to bottom, that should have been a game in which Ohio State didn't have any issue. Now, that again is not to say that Taulia Tagovailoa did not, play well in the first half and put their team in a position to win. But I do attribute a lot of Kyle's struggles yesterday on the offensive line's inability to do their job. And, Kyle, as Tim Chapman alluded to, when Kyle has time to stand back there and throw and, make his reads, he was unbelievable. And, those 2 balls that he made, that dot to Marvin on the sideline, was unbelievable. He dropped it in the breadbasket, and that was, an unbelievable play. That was, I believe, was that the play that was taken away from that sideline interference from Ryan Day that I still have yet to see? Was that
I believe
play?
so. I think that linesman had something for Ryan
It
Day.
was
He called a couple of penalties that were
miserable.
like, yeah,
it was blatant. In my opinion, it was blatant. And in that second half, when they took away Marv's touchdown, that was, about as late of a penalty flag throw as you could have had. And as we talked about yesterday, that motion was completely legal, and it happens on every single motion that, whether or not it's legal, it's not called. And for him to call that at that time, that was unreal. And then, I thought it was great that Marv scored on the next play and had to give the silencer one more go. But yeah, that was an odd situation with Coach Day and that ref. But again, to get off topic, I do think Kyle was affected in the first half by that inconsistent offensive line play, and that just can't happen.
No, it certainly can't. And I really thought that he ended out the day well. 320 yards overall, 1 touchdown pass, or 2 touchdown passes. Sorry, 1 to Cade Stover as well, and Marv. He was 19 for 29, so 65%, or 65%. So not a bad day stats wise. He did pretty good. Did pretty well. Although the receivers did bail him out on 2 underthrown deep balls. Julian Fleming deserves his flowers for that comeback slide, whatever that was, to catch that ball. And then Marv made it look easy. Not surprisingly, though, the man is a freak and a really good athlete, but Um, I thought overall it was a good day for Kyle, and I think you're right there with the offensive line's inconsistencies in the first half. I think a little bit of that too had to do with play calling. I felt like anytime they were running on first down and got 2 yards, they would abandon the run right away. And then it would be 2 incomplete passes. And Maryland knew what was going on. And Mike Loxley, you alluded to it just a little bit ago, managed a hell of a game in the first half. He figured out how to save a timeout. He did all the right things and then ended up at the end of the first half. Baby Tua decided that he was going to throw it into the middle of the field and nobody could get it out of bounds, and they couldn't get down there to spike it in time. So good miscue there by the players and saved Ohio State going into the half down 3. And instead it was tied. So overall, I thought first half was rough, awful. I just overall not good. Not where you would want this team to be. But going into the second half, they went ahead and shut it down. And the defense, I think, is really what settled in there and started it for them.
Yeah, I agree. And I would like to quickly, before we get off the topic of the offense, I would like to quickly pose the question of, can Dallin Hayden really not hold on to the ball like that much in practice?
I don't know.
Because I can't think of, and that seems to be what we've heard last year, that kind of seemed to be what the reasoning behind him not getting some more carries in games was in the second half of last year before the Maryland game. But where is he, and where is Evan Pryor, and why are we not seeing him? And even Mayan Williams, I mean, yesterday was a game where things open up, and I think it's a little bit of a disservice. I know you got to get Xavier on the field, but it's a little bit of a service when you see Xavier Johnson lined up in the backfield before you see Mayan lined up in the backfield. And I don't know if you saw it or not, but there was a tweet yesterday after the game that said something about referenced Mayan getting some more carries after he put the boom on that dude yesterday, and Mayan quote tweeted it with the emoji. So I don't know what's going on and what we can attribute, the lack of carries for certain individuals. I mean, Chip has certainly earned the right to be the second one off the bench, or the first one off the bench for Ohio State in the running back room. But when you're down TreVeyon Henderson, you would think that you would, kind of dip into the well a little bit to get some of those other guys some touches, but that just seemingly didn't seem to be the case. Do you think that is because of the offensive line play and they're not trying to get anybody hurt out there, or what? Because I can't figure that out.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that's all about. I don't know if there's an injury situation going on with Mayan. I mean, he played in that game against Indiana, had 2 touchdowns, and then we really haven't seen him very much since. And then he came out and destroyed that corner trying to come in and tackle him. By the way, if you're a corner trying to go in on a running back, Mayan Williams is probably not the guy to do that to, because you're going to look stupid just like he did. I
surely pop at those pads, buddy.
Oh yeah, he doesn't care. So I don't know if it's an injury thing. I don't know if he's just been inconsistent or if he's just in the doghouse. He's not doing well in school. Again, this is all pure just me trying to give some reasons of what it is. I don't know that he's not doing well in school or that he has an injury. There's got to be something going on, because you don't have your arguably top back from last season just disappear into nowhere.
Not a carry yet, I don't believe. I don't think he's touched the ball one time this season, nor have I seen him on the field.
You talking about Dallin there?
Yeah, I'm talking about Dallin.
Oh, yeah, I was talking about Mayan, but Dallin, I haven't seen him at all. And Evan Pryor, I think we've seen once, and that was against Youngstown State. And it's like, I understand Evan Pryor's coming off an injury, so that kind of makes sense
Hmm.
ish.
Hmm.
But Dallin Hayden, he played in probably what 6 or 8 games, maybe more last year.
Yeah,
Should be a guy that can come in and take a few carries here and there.
one would think. I don't know. That's a head scratcher because he was the
Mhm.
one that single handedly, almost beat Maryland by himself last year in a game the Buckeyes had to have on the road. So I don't know. I was thinking about that yesterday, and I can't put any reasoning behind it. Doesn't make sense to me.
Speaking of tweets, I saw a tweet yesterday
Hmm.
of Marvin Harrison Sr.'s Instagram story, and it had pictures of quarterbacks of the likes of Lincoln Kienholz and CJ Stroud. Is there anything to make of that?
I did not see that. Um, but if the inclination is that there's a little bit of CJ in Lincoln, then I'm all for it.
So I think Lincoln's going to be more of a Justin Fields type of guy. He's a little more
Hmm.
athletic than CJ played at Ohio State. I know he's doing well in the NFL this season through 4 or 5 weeks.
Just
Um,
set the record for most pass attempts without an interception thrown by a rookie in NFL history. Shout out
yeah,
CJ.
yeah. So I'm just curious what to make of that. Whether it's just Marvin Harrison, and by the way, it was Marvin Harrison Sr., not Jr. It was
Hmm.
his dad who
Yeah.
tweeted that out. So I don't, like I said, I don't know what to make of that. Um, my thought is that he was frustrated with the quarterback play in the first half and tweeting out or putting out that as some motivation, but who knows? Um,
Yeah.
I don't think that there's a quarterback controversy brewing though. I, I
Absolutely not.
think I think we have an O line controversy on our hands, and I want to
Correct.
see what a guy like Luke Montgomery can do.
Correct.
Get him in there instead of one of these, either Josh Simmons or Josh Fryer. Although I feel like overall, Josh Fryer has been the better tackle um, outside of him and Josh Fryer or Josh Simmons. But I don't know what else you do there. I know that it's really hard midseason to move somebody got from left to right or right to left, so don't do that. But who's that backup there on the left side? What can we see them maybe? I'm not
I
sure.
I think it's I think continuity is important. Obviously,
Mhm.
at this point of the season, we're about halfway through the regular season now. So I think to your point, you don't really want to midseason, switch anything up as far as the starters go. Um, but good lord, at least push somebody. Let the starter know that it can't be too comfortable up there because something's got to change. Because Kyle's play, I think his numbers would be a lot better if the offensive line was playing better. So Kyle's not the issue. I've been very pleased with Kyle. Throughout the struggles yesterday in the first half, he didn't really let anything get to him. He was cool, calm, collected through the whole thing, and that's what Ohio State needed at the under center is a quarterback who can handle the ups and downs and go out there and make plays and put his team in a position to win. And that's exactly what Kyle McCord did. So even in the face of pressure and with a poor run game, he still found a way to make it happen. So I don't think there's a quarterback controversy at all.
Is Travion Henderson soft as Charmin?
No.
I hearing Ryan Day's comments after the game, Travion Henderson could have played, really kind of irritated me. And given he has an injury history, I get why you hold him, but at the same time, did he want to play? If he did, why hold him?
Listen,
And
I can't think that Trey would be the kind of guy to not play on purpose. Um, but then again, man, I mean, Yeah, that running back situation is kind of a tough one because, like we talked about just a couple seconds ago, I mean, you've got depth there that you can pull from. So if a guy like Trey is not able to go, then there's two others that seem to be pretty capable that didn't really get the carries. So that whole running situation's a really confusing one that, again, Ohio State's going to have to get sorted if they want to make it to their goals.
Do you think that the running back situation right now is you have too many, so you don't have one?
Yeah, I mean, I could see that, but again, there's no. I mean, you trying to run it to the boundary, and you've got free runners at the linebacker position that just beat you there because they're not getting a hat put on them. So I mean, that's the old adage, right? Is a hat on a hat. You got to put a hat on a hat and push somebody out of the way. And if you can't get to the second level, you can't block the linebackers. You can't, understand your assignment on a pull block and you can't do those things, then you're never going to have a running back because, even Chip was getting 2-3 yards a carry. And, I mean, he had a couple that were 4, 5, 6, but there's no push. There's no, slob daddy Crete Taylor Decker out there on that left side of the field. So it's tough.
Yeah, it's certainly tough. And another tough situation, Emeka Ibuka getting hurt late.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like it's going to be too
Yeah.
too much of an injury, not too serious. But what do you think about that as far as this wide receiver room? It kind of seems like it's not very deep, and that Brian Hartline does not have any confidence outside of Marv, Emeka, Julian, in X and very limited situations.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think against Purdue, if he can go, then let him. But I think against Purdue, if he can't go, then you've got to throw Carnell Tate out there, or if push comes to shove, throw Brandon Ennis out there too. Like we got to get some burn out of these young guys. And Carnell Tate has flashed in the moments when he's gotten into the game so far. So you got to throw him out there and see what you can get out of him, especially if Emeka can't go. And like I said, I wouldn't be against seeing Brandon Ennis out there either. And then you look at a guy like Jaden Ballard as well, who is a guy that can take the top off of a defense. He's a burner. I think that he should be the primary punt returner as opposed to Emeka. I think Emeka took an unnecessary big hit the play or two on the punt return before he got hurt. So I don't think it had anything to do with him exiting the game because those were 3 plays apart or 2 plays apart or whatever. But yeah, you got to start to see what you have in those young guys. But I'm not throwing the warning signs up on the receivers. Obviously, you want to see everybody healthy moving into the big games of the season. So if Emeka can't go this week, then he can't. It shouldn't hurt Ohio State that much. So put Carnell out there and see what he can do, and let's see some of Brandon Ennis, see what he's about.
All right. So this is not in our notes, and I'm just going to play this one off the cuff. If you had your choice of an offensive coordinator for this team, who would it be out of anybody?
Just in the country, past, present, doesn't matter. I mean, Ohio State fans might not like to hear this because of what transpired after the fact, but I'd take Tom Herman back in a heartbeat. I'll take the 2014 Tom Herman back in a heartbeat.
So, okay. All right. Fair enough.
Because I see a lot of similarities in that team versus this one. I really do. And, now it was around this time of the season where the offensive line for that team started to figure it out and really, become the dominant offensive line that was going to win them a national championship. And they had, some running backs that were very competent. Now, none of them as good as Ezekiel Elliott on the roster currently right now. But you've got some running backs back there that are competent, and you've got receivers you've got speed, you've got size at receiver, you've got a lot of the same things that 2014 team had. So I think a Tom Herman offense and with this current group, would be exciting. Now, Granted, I don't, it's not to say that I don't like what I'm seeing now, because I do feel like a lot of that is, contingent, and we're going to beat a dead horse here, but the offensive line is holding Ohio State back right now. And I think we would, there's a lot of hoopla that I saw on, social media yesterday about failing to break 40 points again and blah, 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 blah. The fact of the matter is now I think Buckeye fans, especially with this team, is that there are going to be a lot of these games this season, I'm afraid. And but the fact of the matter is if Ohio State can go out there and win these kind of games, then you're stacking wins instead of losses, then that can only mean good for Ohio State in the long run. And I think there's something to be said. A lot of the past Buckeye teams, were running away with victories and beating people by 30 or 40. And then when it got down to it and we played a good team, they weren't really battle tested. So if you want to spin zone this thing in the ultimate manner, then, this is a pretty battle tested team already. And, I got to think that can only bode well for Ohio State. So hopefully they can take these close, hard fought, grinded out kind of games on both sides of the ball and turn it into gold moving forward. So we'll hope.
Yeah. Do you think that this offensive line, the lack of offensive line performance here, is directly Justin Frye's fault? Or is it a symptom of the last 4 or 5 years of poor recruiting by Greg Studwara before he left?
Greg Studwara, with his inability to scout, recruit, and develop top offensive line talent, has, for lack of a better way to put it, buried Ohio State in the trenches. He set Ohio State back a lot in his time at Ohio State, and we're definitely feeling the effects of that even to this day. So I mean, I had hope that Justin Frye was going to be able to come in here and turn it around quicker. I'm reserving my judgment on him as a coach until maybe we go through another cycle and see what happens. But I mean, this right now, this is not good. And this is coming off of Studwara's work. So I don't have a lot of good things to say about Greg Studwara.
No, I didn't think so. He was not a very good not a very good coach, especially when he was here with Ohio State. I thought he was all right, but his recruiting was not great.
Abysmal.
Yeah, and looking through the recruits right now, and that's what I was pulling up while we were talking there. There's not a lot of O linemen on this, like ranked very high on this draft class or this class right now, which gives me pause. That we got to get something turned around, and maybe it's starting to recruit more in-state offensive linemen. You got to maybe take a flyer on a big Ohio guy. Go look at the Coldwaters, the St. Ed's, some of those big, go up to Akron, Canton, Massillon area, find guys up there and even, some of the more rural schools too. Go find those guys that Jim Tressel and his staff used to find, and really make those players. And I think if you can do that, then Ohio State is going to be in a really, really good position. You think about the 2014 O line, Jacoby Bourne was on that line, and he was not. I don't think he was very highly rated. I think Taylor Decker was probably the highest rated dude on that offensive line. And he was a dude. That whole offensive line though was good. One thing that I kind of noticed here, and I want to get your take on this, although you may not be old enough to remember it drive for drive, but do you think that this team looks like the 2002 national championship team?
I think there's a lot of, parallels that you can draw there. And I think, you kind of made the comparison to from Kyle McCord to Craig Krenzel a couple weeks ago, kind of that, that steady force back there, can put the ball where it needs to be, not going to wow you with what he does on the field, but an ultimate, a leader, on the offensive side of the ball. And then the defense, I think, I think we're starting to see Sonny Styles heat up a little bit, man. I think that's, his second half yesterday, he laid a couple of big hits down. So, if you can get a guy like that to step up, you can get keep the safeties flying around. Josh Proctor again yesterday had a really good day. Had a pick six, which the Buckeyes desperately needed at that point in the game for some momentum. So you get a big play out of a veteran like that. A la maybe, and again, I'm not trying to draw apples to apples comparisons here, but you've got a safety, like Lathan Ransom that is starting to again heat up over the last couple of weeks, and start to again lay the boom, a la maybe a Michael Doss sort of situation. So I can see some parallels between the 2020 this iteration of the Ohio State team and the 2002 team.
Yeah, I think so. I felt like Chip was trying to be Lydell Ross out there yesterday. When Maurice Clarett had to go out for a couple of games for a little bit of a knee surgery, if I remember correctly. And that's not to say that I think that Trey and Maurice Clarett run similarly, because I don't think that they do.
Right.
Maurice Clarett was more of a power guy that just wanted to get in there and beat the heck out of you. So, overall, I can see a lot of comparisons. And I was looking through stats on that team earlier to kind of draw some of those comparisons. I didn't realize Chris Gamble only had one touchdown that year, and it was that pick six against Penn State. That was it. No other touchdowns. But you had Michael Jenkins, and boy, was he good. Just
a lot
like
of fun to watch.
Just like Super Marv, who 163 yards yesterday on 8 receptions. So that tells you anything. About 20 yards of reception. Whew. Moving on to the defense, though, I think overall that defense would get a B+ for me.
I agree.
I think we saw some interesting areas that need to be improved. One of the largest being the run game, especially interior runs. It felt like Stami, Teal, and Cody. No, Steele, Tommy, and Cody Simon all just were not very good. And Steele was having a rough game, so much so that he had to go take a break for Cody Simon to come in. I'm not saying that they're not good, because I think that the linebackers are really good. It's just it's interesting to me. Is it a scheme thing? Is that why they're not getting in there? Are they not playing gap sound? Because it seemed like when we were getting gashed in the run game, they were running a lot of gap scheme. So are they just not running? Are they just cheating a little bit, trying to find the cutout, or what's going on there? What do you think?
They're running right into a block. I mean, you see it play after play after play. They're hitting the wrong holes. They're not where they need to be. And I thought Steele and Tommy both finished the year last year in an incredible fashion. Had a really good game against Georgia. And they both come back, and I thought that we would see a lot more from them. Now, granted, Tommy still did, I think, lead the team in tackles yesterday, if I'm not mistaken.
He did.
But I mean, they're running into the wrong gaps. They're running into a free blocker, as opposed to shooting the gap and getting in the backfield. Now I will give credit to Steele. He, at the end of the first half, he had the play where when Talia threw the ball in the middle of the field, Steele kind of laid on top of that receiver a little bit to make that time run off, and you see Tommy just book it down the middle of the field into the locker room, like, see you guys, let's get the hell out of here. So I thought that was pretty funny. But I
Do
mean,
you think he had to poop? Is that why he ran so fast?
that's, if I were him, that's what I'd go with. Either
Okay.
that or that's just the ultimate get the hell out of Dodge run. But I mean, good Lord, you want to see a more, again, consistency is the key word here, because the offensive line has not been all bad. They've had some bright spots, and so have the linebackers. But when you're sandwiched in between a good defensive line and a good secondary, those issues don't shine as bright as they could. But man, oh man, where is CJ Hicks? Why is he not getting on the field?
I don't know. And you gotta think that at some point that's going to end up hurting recruiting too, because you got a young guy that's extremely athletic. He may make a mistake here or there, but if you don't give him any time in 2 years that he's been here, I can't see him sticking around for a third year. I can't.
Would you?
No, I wouldn't. Not in today's landscape of college football, where you can transfer anytime. Not anytime, but you have one free transfer. Absolutely, I would go somewhere where I could play. But I thought overall the defensive line is really starting to come into their own. They started getting home. Mike Hall graded the best pass rusher on the team at 84%. He had 1 sack, 1 hit, and 3 hurries. So really, really good game for him. Five pressures for Mike Hall. Really, really good game. JT, I think that was his best game of the season so far. Had 6 total pressures, 1 sack, and 5 hurries. Caden Curry, man, he had 3 hurries himself and was pretty disruptive. It seems as though good things happen when he's on the field. And in pure pass rushing situations, it seemed like Jack Sawyer was getting subbed out for Caden Curry. What do you make of that before I get to Jack's stats for the day?
I don't know. I honestly don't know where I'm at with the Jack Sawyer experiment. Because again, he's not a guy that's going to line up at the end position and just bull rush somebody and beat somebody straight up and get in the backfield. I think, I don't know if there needs to be more stunts run with Jack to kind of let him get back into the middle of the defensive line, and maybe try something different there. But I don't know where I'm at on Jack Sawyer, but I can tell you that when Caden Curry is in the game, that dude is an animal unleashed, man. I mean, he is so much fun to watch. He plays 1,000 miles an hour every play, whether that's special teams or on defense. The kid is special, and you saw out there, and like you mentioned, 3 hurries, very disruptive and very, very, he was a bit of a game changer when he got in. And I did see a little bit of Kenyatta Jackson yesterday, which was good to see him get some snaps too.
He had one really good pass rush. I was getting ready extremely impressed with. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, when he was lined up on the bottom, and yeah, I mean he bullied that tackle, and just pushed him right into the lap of Talia. So yeah, I mean, there are people out there that can go do the job, and the sad part is that we're getting down to it and down to some important ball. So if Caden Curry and Kenyatta are going to put the Buckeyes in a better position to win, then Jack's going to see his snaps taken, period.
Yeah, I think there's 2 things that could be affecting Jack here. I think the first being that stupid helmet. Get rid of the
Helmet is
Vicus
so
helmet.
ugly.
It is awful. You look like a third grader out there. Stop trying to look and sound like Pat Mahomes in your froggy voice. Get rid of the helmet. Go to either a Shut or Riddell helmet and move on with that nonsense.
Yeah, those helmets are awful. They do not look good at
No,
all.
they're awful. And if
I hate
you
it.
do have to wear one, at least wear one with a visor. Like
Mhm.
at least swag it up a little bit.
Yeah,
He looks like he has no swag.
it's
Well,
a
of course,
motorcycle helmet.
100%.
It's a
I could
motorcycle
see
helmet.
that being the what the dude down at Iron Ponies trying to sell me when I'm trying to get my motorcycle helmet. He's like, "Oh, you're a big Buckeye fan. Here's this nonsense."
And by the way, you could use it on a football field. Yeah, that helmet sucks. It's so ugly.
And now on to the real reason why I think that Jack Sawyer is not doing very well. I think that this is 100% scheme dependent. I think that Jim Knowles is trying to run his Jack, Leo, Bullet, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
Basher, Blazer, whatever stupid position name you want to call it, hybrid linebacker, defensive end position. I think that he is really, really trying to get Jack to play that and be that guy. I don't think Jack is that guy. I think that Jack needs to be a traditional three-point defensive lineman, three hand in the dirt and go. I think that that's where he kind of is getting lost in the mix. Is he's getting lost in the scheme?
Yeah, and there's a lot of not a lot of, I don't want to say a lot of, but there's some things that I'm seeing out of the Jim Knowles defense that it kind of gets more head scratching every week. And I don't, listen, again, I never want to sound like I know more football than any coach that's on Ohio State staff, because I know that's not the case. But it almost seems like we're seeing the same thing every week, that they just keep trying and trying and trying, and it's just not working. And it I think there's something to be said about your point with Jack, and that him, getting lost in the scheme is a real thing. But if you see that and you realize that, then why not make a more concerted effort to put him in a better position to succeed, rather than, I mean, I think at a certain point you got to say to hell with your scheme and take a step back and look at the athletes that you have and what their game suits, and try to work more on that. Because lining him up, doing whatever he's doing, standing up, whatever that role for him is, I mean, it's not working.
No, it's certainly not. And I really hate seeing defensive linemen drop into coverage as much as we've seen Jack and JT do this season.
Yeah.
It's great to have good athletes out there in space, and they are great athletes, but I don't think their skill set really is that conducive to it. And I know that there's a lot of hybrid this, hybrid that in football now, especially in the NFL. And I know that, you want to try to give guys the best look they possibly can in college for the NFL, but that ain't it, but to your point, I think that part of the reason we're seeing some of this is because, and everybody start your counter and start drinking, this is a safety driven defense.
Yeah, yeah. And
I mean, look at what the three safeties did yesterday. Sonny Styles, huge, extremely disruptive in the run game. Big
mhm,
hits. He struggled a little bit in coverage in the first half, but
mhm,
I still think that he did all right. And he was the highest graded tackler on the team at 83.3%. Um, I thought Sonny just he was quietly good. He made
mhm.
plays when he needed to, and he wasn't as flashy as you would like him to be. But I think that Lathan and Josh had him had him covered in that sense. But I really thought Sonny Styles had a good game, and I think he's starting to come into his own.
Yep. Heating up, baby. I mean, I'm telling you, I can see it now. And over the last, 2 games or so, you can tell that he's starting to get a little bit more comfortable. And the way that he was running around yesterday and the hits that he was throwing around, you can tell that he's coming into his zone. And speaking of, since we're on the topic of the secondary, what a refreshing sound to hear Gus Johnson back on the call yesterday. And when Denzel Burke laid that dude out, it was, a flashback back to that 2016 game against Maryland, in which Denzel Ward had the barbecue back there and didn't invite him and hurt his feelings. Man, that pumped me up, got me going again. And, while we're on the topic of Denzel Ward and that hit against Maryland, still not targeting, and the NCAA owes him an apology. But neither was that hit yesterday from
and
Denzel
a half
Burke.
A game back.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. I saw that. Dad and I were there. I saw that from C-Deck. I could see it from C-Deck with my own eyes, let alone field level. So I don't really know how that happened. But yeah, I mean, Denzel Burke popped that dude, decleated him pretty good. And so that was, it's good to see Ohio State running around. Lathan's been throwing the hit stick. Josh Proctor's known to throw the hit stick. So, it's good to see the Buckeyes, starting to fly around on defense and lay the wood like they can. And Lathan Ransom, again, yesterday added to an impressive season thus far, 6 tackles, 0 yards allowed on 4 targets and 1 interception. So big day from Lathan Ransom. In a game where you're seeing Josh Proctor step up, you're seeing Lathan Ransom step up, and those are 2 veteran guys for an Ohio State defense that needs leaders like that, and they're playing like it. So shout out to Lathan and Josh, and shout out to Proc for making me eat my words from early on in the season, man. He's playing well, and he's probably been one of Ohio State's more consistent players on the defense. So if you had to choose between Lathan and Josh, who do you think so far has been more important to the Ohio State defense?
Lathan Ransom, just because of his ability to get up there in the run game. He was the second leading tackler yesterday, and that's really why. And he was the leading tackler at Notre Dame in a huge game. That's why I say Lathan Ransom is. But I think that Josh Proctor is really the flashier player, the more twitched up player, the guy that's going to make more big plays down the stretch. I think Lathan Ransom is your Jordan Fuller type of guy who's just going to be there and be solid, make the plays that he needs to make, and get an interception on a play where JT and Caden Curry should have, they should have hit to Leah, to baby Tua, to a Tito, whatever his name is.
You and the names.
Tua's baby brother. They should have hit him, and his interception came there, and he was just kind of in space and climbed the ladder and got it. It was a great play. And Josh Proctor's pick 6. He came up, jumped a route, and I thought for sure when we saw that flag come out that it was coming back, but luckily it didn't. I don't even know what the flag was.
I can't remember at this point.
But Josh Proctor's grades: highest overall defender at 86.7, highest grade in the run game, 82.1, second highest graded tackler behind Sonny Styles, 82.9. Sonny Styles was 83.3, so not very much of a gap there. Highest graded in coverage, 84.8. He had 3 targets, and he only gave up 1 reception for -1 yards. So,
I mean, you
can't get much better than that.
You cannot ask for more out of a 5th-year guy who came back to prove a point. And, that's the biggest thing for me about Josh Proctor and the way that he's played is he had one goal in mind when he decided to come back this year, right? And that was to prove a point. That last year was a fluke. He can be better than that. He is better than that. And he's showing it. And, notably frustrated with Josh Proctor and in the way that he played, especially in the opening game. And you know, that's what you like to see out of a guy in that situation, is to come back, take being pulled after the first series in the opening week, and really build on that, and you know, understand that Jim Knowles, Ryan Day, and the Buckeyes need Josh Proctor to be that player that he was yesterday and that player that he was against Notre Dame. And he is. And, you know, so far, he's arguably been the best player on defense for Ohio State. And so it's really good to see Proc use that, you know, size and athleticism and skill set in the way that he did yesterday. Man, he was all over the field, and it was good to see Proc out there flying around, and good to see Lathan and Sonny, man. And is, you know, if you're going to have a safety driven defense, which is number 2, check that one off for number 2 on the times mentioned on this show. Safety driven defense, number 3. If you're going to have that, then you're going to need those 3 to play well. And all 3 of them lived up to the bill yesterday. So, you know, in a situation where Maryland is a good football team. There's a lot of good things said about Maryland yesterday, you know, nationally in the media, and there have been, you know, in the days leading up to this game. So Maryland is not by any means a pushover. And as we mentioned earlier, Mike Locksley did a hell of a job in game planning. They had, you know, he had Maryland ready to go, and they came out swinging. But the defense settled in, and, you know, the defense did what they had to do. And I guess it is fair to call, you know, them a bend but don't break defense. But I think there's, you know, that's kind of selling the defense a little bit short. 17 points given up, and that's the most that they've given up all year. And, you know, it wasn't
twice they've given, or no, Notre Dame was 14. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the most they've given up all year. And in a situation like that, you know, you look around and you see another defense up north that is playing at a high level as well. But, you know, they haven't faced the competition that Ohio State has faced. And take it for what it's worth, that was, you know, Ohio State's 5th game of the season, and the 5th team that came into that matchup with Ohio State undefeated. So that's the first time that's happened to an Ohio State football team in a long time. That will not be the case next week against Purdue. But, you know, Ohio State's played up until this point, you know, better matchups than the team up north has, and they're undefeated. So when you look at it, take a step back, and you kind of analyze it for what it is. You know, this is a good defense, and they need to keep building on the performance that they had yesterday.
I know I ask this every week, and I'm going to continue to ask it until we get a positive answer here. Are the Bullets back?
I think so, dude. And I think if you want to reserve judgment, you know, for some of the bigger games where, you know, Penn State's going to have people flying around the field. They got, you know, athleticism at basically every skill position on offense. So, you know, if you want to reserve judgment, I think you could, and I think that's fair. But I think, you know, we're about as there as we can get, you know, as far as being back. And then I think if you couple that, I think BIA is back too. However, before you answer that question, because I want to hear your thoughts on that, what are your thoughts on Davison Igbinosun? Because I have mine, and I don't know if mine are going to be as nice as yours are. I think Davison is a great player. I think he is going to be a great player. But I think his aggressiveness is going to be something that could lead to bad things for Ohio State if they don't rein him in.
He is Damon Arnett the year before Jeff Hafley. So 2018, he's 2018 Damon Arnett.
Okay, that's fair.
He's raw, but he's aggressive, and his aggression can lead to some either missed tackles. I know he's had 1 or 2, but also some PI calls. I don't think the PI call on the touchdown that he gave up should have been a PI call. Um, and I think he got there at the same time and was trying to play the ball. But I don't know. I think that he's going to continue to mature and develop over the season. I don't think that this is the full version um of Davison Igbinosun this year. I know that you're not as thrilled with his play, but I think you need somebody like him opposite of Denzel Burke to really kind of put a quarterback's mindset of should I throw over there or not? Because we know that Denzel Burke is not going to get as many targets anymore. I mean, he's shown this season that he is the guy that we thought he was his freshman year.
Yep.
But I think that Davison is trying to play Robin to Denzel Burke's Batman, and he's like a step away. He's almost there. Almost there.
Yeah. You gotta see more discipline. Like you said, man, I just penalties and stuff and some of his aggression and him getting beat off the line and making up for that by grabbing and stuff like that. It's just, it's a TikTok before one of those plays breaks off for one of those, big gainers that we've been wanting so badly to put behind us. So, but when the rest of the defense is playing the way they are, then I guess it masks some of those mistakes. So got to see improvement.
Yeah. I think what you're seeing is him coming from an SEC program. What happens in the SEC when a corner gets beat? They start to get grabby. They don't get called as much. I mean, the officiating in the Big Ten has just been awful this year anyway. So and rightfully so, he's been penalized probably the most in that secondary, but I don't know. I think that there's a little bit to forgive there, given when I just think back to last year's corner play.
Yeah.
He would have been the number one corner on that team last year.
That's true.
So
That's true.
Is that really that bad of a thing?
No. When you take a step back and look at it from that angle, no, it's not.
But I mean, Jordan Hancock is having himself a season too. I thought he's been really solid the last couple of weeks in that nickel position, coming in to sub out Sonny Styles. And I still think you need to, especially with the way that the linebackers played, you need to take one of those linebackers off the field if you're going to sub in the nickel, a true nickel corner. You have to take one off. So it is Steele the better pass coverage guy, or is Tommy? They both graded out at 58% yesterday. So, you got to pick one, but I think you need Sonny Styles on the field. I think he can cover more of what a linebacker should cover, and that's tight ends and over the middle and zone. I think that Sonny Styles would be done a lot more favors if that were the case.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But back to the question that originally we went down this rabbit hole with, I do think that the Bullets are back. I think that they're back like Texas was last week, to the point where this week they're not back anymore. Because Texas just got beat by Oklahoma, who they beat 49-0 the year prior. So I think that the Bullets are back just like Texas was back. They can go away very quickly, just as quick as they came.
Well, then they're not back.
No. They're back based on the play, but they're like on the cusp of that. They're not like solidified themselves as certified Angus beef back.
Okay. You heard it. The defense is back on track to being A5 Wagyu here soon. Um, anything else to add about the defense before we get out of here?
No, but can we talk about Miami real quick? Ohio
Do we
State
have
has
to?
broken Miami. Miami's never going to recover from that 2002 team. Here's why. They could have won last night if they would have just kneeled the ball.
Yeah, that
Instead,
was
they ran it with 31 seconds left, fumbled it, and lost the game.
yeah,
Thank you,
that's tough
Georgia
scenes.
Tech.
Yeah, that's
Thank you,
that's tough scenes.
Miami.
That's tough scenes. And while we're on the topic of Miami, um, I don't need to name names, but you know who you are. Quit wasting your time. It ain't worth it. Just gonna leave that there.
Chase Claypool?
No,
Oh, Mike
Mm.
Mike McDaniels?
no.
Because that dude's goofy as hell.
He is goofy. Great guy though. Great guy though.
All right. One last thing, and then we can take it home here.
Mm-hmm.
Players of the game were Marvin Harrison Jr. and Josh Proctor.
Mhm.
Other than those two, who's your offensive and defensive player of the game?
Offensive player of the game outside of Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm gonna hand to Kyle McCord. I think in a situation like a game yesterday, you have to have a quarterback who's going to be poised, not let some of those early struggles and run game struggles and even the pass game did not look good in the first quarter and a half. So there was a lot to get discouraged about early, and there was a lot that they could have gone into the turtle shell, pun intended, and kind of gave up, but Kyle McCord didn't. Going back to that last drive against Notre Dame, Kyle McCord is a mentally tough guy who's not going to let things get to him easy, and he's going to stand in there and he's going to play a full 60 minutes, and that's what he did yesterday. So again, very very impressed with Kyle McCord. He'll get my player of the game or my Buckeye Leaf on the offense outside of Marvin, and then on defense, I'm going to go ahead and let's see here. That's a tough one. I like again what I've seen out of Lathan Ransom. He's really 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 playing well, and he's a dominant force that Ohio State needs on the back end of that defense. And he's continuing to show week in and week out why he's one of the better players at that position in the country, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think mine is going to be on offense. Carnell Tate,
Okay.
because of the skill required it takes to have two mouth guards on his helmet at one time.
I knew it. I knew it. I knew it.
And then on defense, it's going to be JT. You thought I was going to go with Jack Sawyer and shit.
No, I knew you weren't going to go. I knew you weren't going to go with Jack Sawyer, but JT deserved it, man. He had a great game yesterday. And then we mentioned Mike Hall earlier too. So just a really good game by the defense yesterday when the Buckeyes absolutely needed it. The offense came around and overcame a hellaciously slow start in the early going of that game. A lot of bye week hangover there, which Coach Day made mention of in his post game media availability. So you'd like to see that get cleaned up. But the fact of the matter is, Ohio State, a 37-17 winner in the Horseshoe to advance to 6-0 on the season. 6-0 or 5-0? It was week 6, 5-0. We had a bye week last week. My math is awful. The Buckeyes are still undefeated, though. That math is true. So we're ebbing and flowing here in football season. The Buckeyes are flowing. They look to overcome some mistakes that they made and keep it rolling here next week at Purdue. So a lot going on for the Buckeyes, a lot going on here for High Street Sports. We thank you guys for joining us again. Guys, remember, there's probably about 56 to 57% of you that are viewing that are not subscribed. Let's go ahead and change that. Hit the subscribe button, like, comment, share the pod with somebody that you know. let us know what you guys want to hear. Let us know any questions that you have. So we're going to keep it locked here for the Buckeye Show every Sunday. We'll let you know what we think. Keep you guys rolling throughout the football season, heading towards some good stuff. So any last second, 2 mouth guard, ugly helmet comments that you have?
Get rid of the Vicus helmets.
Go Bucks.